My name is Mahesh Das, and I have the pleasure and privilege of serving as the 8th president of the Boston Architectural College. I'd like to welcome you all to this very special event and a very special exhibition, a very intimate exhibition, as no doubt you have been experiencing it. And I'm excited to see so many people from so many different parts of the BAC, but also well beyond the BAC to the Boston community, institutions and firms, and it's very exciting to see this coming together. So thank you for joining us. And today we are inaugurating, launching a very exciting exhibition of the BAC's honorary alumnus and Pritzker-prize winning Indian architect, Balkrishna Doshi. And this is an original exhibition that we have commissioned, and I'll tell you the story a little bit later. But this exhibition has been in the works for nearly 2 years. And there are a lot of individuals who have worked very hard on this, and it is their work that I'd like to recognize and thank. So first, I'd like to thank Khushnu Panthaki Hoof, who is the curator of the exhibition, and she's a director of Vastu Shilpa Foundation and partner of Studio Sangath, and Doshi's granddaughter as well. And she has been a joy to work with, and she has delivered on this. And so all the artifacts in the exhibition were made in India and sent here, most of them. I would say 95% of the artifacts have been made in India. And so she could not be here today, and you will later hear her voice message for us. Then I'd like to also recognize Representative Jay Livingstone, who has been instrumental in providing us the support and the funding from the Commonwealth through an earmark for the cultural activities. So we are very grateful and excited by that partnership and support that we've received, thanks to his championing our project. I would like to also recognize and thank Moshe Safdie. Moshe Safdie himself could not be here today, but I know that he has been talking about the exhibition for a long time, excited about it. He just had another commitment he couldn't get out of. Otherwise, I know he would have been here. And he and his firm have actually sponsored the exhibition generously. And the moment we asked, stepped forward. And we are fortunate to have been joined by Charu Kokate, who is partner of Safdie Architects, and I will introduce and request her to speak here in a moment as well. And then would like to thank Kishore Varanasi, who's a principal at CBT and a trustee of our college, and his support and sponsorship of this exhibition has been instrumental in bringing it to this particular stage. Who else? I'm forgetting. Let's see. I think we have, yeah. So, not the least, the most important person that I'd like to recognize is Dean Karen Nelson. In fact, I would say entire credit, I would like to give it to her for this exhibition. Because I know she is blushing there and probably embarrassed, but I must say that it is really her passion, and she has tirelessly worked through countless phone calls, Zoom calls, and emails. It's just enormous amount of work that has gone into it to make this particular thing possible. And it has gone through, and I'll tell you the origin story of this, and that will tell you how much effort it has taken. So in 2021, we accorded an honorary doctorate on Balkrishna Doshi at our commencement. And so that's where the journey began for this particular project. And then we kept in touch, and Khushnu and Doshi and we continued to talk, and we said we'd like to bring Vitra Museum's retrospective exhibition of Doshi's work, Architecture for the People, and that was a comprehensive exhibition that they designed, and Khushnu was the curator of that too. And we talked for a while and then quickly realized that it is unwieldy to be brought here. It is an enormous production, but also logistically very challenging. So we quickly realized that that was not going to be feasible. We pivoted, and thanks to both Vitra and Khushnu, they said, well, why don't you produce new material and a new exhibition? And so we then had the opportunity to commission the exhibition. So all the materials that you see have been produced for the exhibition, including the photographs and videos. So this is new material. It's a new dimension of it. It actually is a very intimate perspective of Doshi's work through his life and what's happening with these projects now. And so that is why it is Architecture is Within Us, and you'll hear more about it from Karen Nelson and from others as well. So that's the story and the journey. And I think in a way, this is a milestone, right? It brings to us a major and international work that is relevant to Boston and the region and the communities. It is relevant to our times as well. So that's what I would say about the story of how this has come to me. And I will share with you just one particular interaction that I had with Doshi, and then invite Dean Karen Nelson and others to come and speak. So interestingly enough, I have never met in person Doshi. I left India 32 years ago, and at that time it was a very different time, and I didn't have an opportunity to do so. And it was really in 2021 that I reached out to him. And I told him the story that I am his Eklavya Sishya. So the story of Eklavya is from Mahabharata, the great Indian novel, from the mythology of India, where Eklavya is the disciple of a great teacher called Drona, who is the teacher of all of Pandavas and Kauravas. And Eklavya goes to Drona and says, I would like to be your disciple. And Drona says, no, I cannot do that. You know, I have already enough people enrolled. Our enrollment is full. We have to reject 95% of the people who apply to my school. And so he could not get in. And then what he did was he makes a statue of Drona, and then he practices by himself. And then one day, the greatest disciple of Drona is Arjuna, a great archer, and he discovers that this kid is doing much better than him. So he becomes envious. And then so he connects him with Drona, and Drona says, where did you learn this? And he says, from you. He says, I didn't teach you, I haven't taught you. And he says, well, this is what I did. I made a statue of you, and I just learned it by watching from a distance. It is the YouTube of those times, right? We have to say. And he learned it all by himself, but from a distance. But then Drona does something very interesting. He says, there cannot be another archer who is greater than Arjuna. So he says, you must give me the gift that a Sishya gives to the Guru. It's called Guru Dakshina. So it's a gift that is given by the student to the Guru. So he says, anything you ask, Guru. And he says, give me your thumb. And for an archer, the thumb is everything. So he gives the thumb. So that's a touching story. The reason I tell the story is Doshi wrote about this story in talking about Lucan and Le Corbusier. So we recounted and connected and said, Lucan apparently never met Le Corbusier, at least at that time when he was connected with Doshi. And I could be wrong, but that's what Doshi has said, so I'm repeating it. And so Lucan said, I've learned from Le Corbusier, and when Le Corbusier passed away, Lucan apparently said to Doshi in person in Philadelphia, that now who do I work for? And so when I talked to Doshi, I said, I am your Eklavya Shishya because I learned a lot from you. I've never met you, but I owe you a lot in all that. So I am so gratified that this moment has arrived when we could all experience this, and I'm just over the moon that we could enjoy this exhibition. So with that, the program today is that I'm going to invite Dean Karen Nelson, who heads our exhibitions and lectures program, which is extraordinary and world-class now in Moshe Safdie exhibition in fall, and now Doshi exhibition, and we'll see what next we have. So I'm going to invite her to speak in a moment, and following that, we'd like to invite and introduce Adil Nades Santos, who needs no introduction to the architectural community here, former dean of MIT School of Architecture and Planning and professor now. And so she, of course, knows Doshi for a long time, and Khushnu and Adil have spoken about it, and she has kindly agreed to come join us and share a few thoughts and few stories of her experience and working with and knowing Doshi. Following that, I will invite Charu Kokate, partner with Safdie Architects, who also had many interactions and experiences, and then Kishore Varanasi, who is our trustee and who has actually worked with Doshi early in his career. And so those are some of the thoughts and stories that we'll hear. But now it is time for me to really turn the stage to the person who has made this exhibition possible. So, Karen.
Thanks so much. Thank you. As Mahesh explained, this exhibit transformed from an encyclopedic retrospective to something more personal, more nuanced, more steeped in Doshi's journals, and even in the intangible. I'm deeply grateful for Mahesh's vision and his understanding that by bringing this exhibit to the BAC, we would get a source of inspiration for the design community, for our students, and each of us would have a way of dipping into the renewable energy source that this exhibit is, so taking us from the cold winter to spring. During the pandemic, we all became very aware of how our homes and whether they had a connection to outside, even if it was modest, and how that outside fresh air could bring relief and help us feel like we could make it through as opposed to feeling like we were trapped within. Not everyone had homes that had connection to fresh air and spaces they could be in. We were particularly motivated because of that to bring Doshi's exhibit here to share the model of affordable housing with dignity, with access to terraces, gardens, and small courtyards to the Commonwealth, to hold out a beacon for developers and for architects and planners to honor people's humanity. This is a through line of the exhibit, and it forms a connection with the exhibit that just closed January 3rd of Moshe Safdie's work, and both Safdie and Doshi worked together in the Habitat Bill of Rights of 1974, which prescribed housing that in fact conferred dignity and open space, as it was presented to the UN in that year. Doshi's housing holds spaces for rituals. It creates architecture to have pathways and platforms for living. The work builds in evolutionary change as individuals grow and their living situations change. His housing spaces, formal as well as informal, the in-between and adjacent spaces expand and alter with people's families and with their habits. Doshi creates an evolving space for being and dwelling fully in extreme heat, in monsoon rains, and in cooler weather. Doshi speaks and writes about architecture as an extension of life that responds to climate, light, and local building technologies. His work aims to amend disparities between people. Throughout this exhibit, you'll find quotes connected to natural systems, particularly the significance of water. Doshi describes himself as a calm river finding its way to the ocean. And as you may realize, this exhibit moved from an imagined digital transfer of materials to something genuinely material. The powder-coated steel section perspectives, which were created in Ahmedabad, were shipped and assembled here. Khushnu refers to these steel sections as avatars, not like the ones you may think of in films and digital games, but ones that you imagine from the Hindu traditions as crossing over, from the heavens coming down to the earth, from the earth ascending. These sections with scale figures show daily life captured in a moment. These avatars also frame the work beyond and make connections to other works through and with one another. You can see 3 different types of learning typologies in the exhibit next to each other, from the Heroic Institute of Indology, which is sensitive to climate, right next to the Shreyas Comprehensive School for Younger Students, which celebrates their dynamic movement and the movement of air. The wooden models accompanying each project invite play. You can move the semicircular roof forms of Sangath Studio. You also get a sense of the bird's eye view of each project. The steel avatars are paired with photographs printed on silk. The fabric contrasts with metal fixedness. These hangings swirl with movement and breath and the vagaries of the weather and our HVAC system. Khushnu commissioned an original soundscape to capture natural sounds as well as the street sounds of Ahmedabad. If you listen carefully, you can hear it in the exhibit, and it helps recognize the transformation of street noise over the past 60 years in Ahmedabad, and it also welcomes us to close our eyes and imagine being there. The recent videos, which Mahesh referred to, of these 9 projects bring sectional, spatial, and temporal conditions into dialogue with the drawings and the models. Where the monitors are paired, you can see one video celebrating the exterior experience and another one celebrating the interior one on foot. This is especially strong in Sept School, which Doshi founded when he was 35 to ask new questions about architecture and also how to educate the next generation of architects. Doshi moves seamlessly from small works to large, from housing people with dignity and fresh air to creating institutions that thrive to this day. The exhibit of these 9 pivotal works from his career draw from the logic of dreams, from myths, and from the intangible. If you dwell in this exhibit long enough, you can draw on the architecture that is, as Doshi says, within us. And now we are going to have, if Matt Lundin will help me, an opportunity to hear from Khushnu herself. She sent us a recorded message just earlier today to play at this evening's event. Matt.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to all of you present here. Please accept my sincere apologies for not being able to be present here with all of you at the BAC. There were some unforeseen circumstances, and hence I had to cancel my trip last minute. But I do hope that during the course of the exhibition, I will be able to visit and personally take you around the exhibition. Before I talk a little bit about the show, I would like to thank 2 very important people who have been extremely accommodating, considerate, kind, and supportive during this entire process. The president of the BAC, Dr. Mahesh Das, and the dean of the Architectural College, Karen Nelson. They have not only been supportive, but they have been extremely open to all kinds of ways of representation and dialogue during this process. encouraging, and I see a great future for the BAC in their hands. Having said that, the ideas represented in this exhibition, Architecture is Within Us, actually emerged from one of my conversations with Professor Balkrishna Doshi. Usually our conversations begin from architecture and its role in society, but they always tend to meander around art, the cosmos, volumes, nature, and the role of the architect today. So looking back at his work and Doshi's life especially, all of us at our office, Sangath, have learnt many things, especially the value of layering and immersing oneself literally within something, whether it is our work, travel, or its everyday life. So therefore, through the medium of these detailed sections of Doshi's buildings, which specifically these 9 projects, which begin from the 1960s to the early 2000s, we have put together an immersive, or I would say rather an atmospheric display of Doshi's work. And while Doshi's architecture has been explored viewed many times, in fact by me as well in my earlier exhibitions, through the lenses of humanism, empathy, and experience, in this exhibition I have tried to uncover his search for the intangibles through these sections and the videos. The built projects as well as their context are also presented in the show. So apart from walking about in this field of sections at the BAC, you will be able to understand the 9 selected projects through block models, sketches, and moving images and videos. The idea is to juxtapose different approach in terms of modulation of light, scales, and volumes in these projects, which have been done in different parts of the country, in different phases of Doshi's life. The timeline of Doshi's life and many unexpected events that have taken place have also been presented in a short film. So from this you can probably get an idea and dwell deeper into the people, places, and projects with whom he's interacted in his career spanning 6 decades, and that which have had a great impact on his life as well as on his ways of working. So I do hope that through these glimpses into Doshi's work, you will come closer to his search for the intangibles that truly celebrate the architecture within. Thank you and have a great evening.
I'd like to welcome Adele Nade Santos to the podium. Thank you.
Well, I got the invitation a few days ago and I said, I'm not going to prepare a talk. And he said, don't worry about it. Okay, so in that spirit, everything you said was wonderful and I believe everything is correct. So I actually have, I had the real pleasure of meeting Doshi one day. We both at a lecture at Harvard. I will not explain who was lecturing, but it was really downright boring. And we were sitting to each other, and he has a wonderful sense of humor. He kind of nudged me and he said, let's go and cook up something, which meant, who knows? I said, sure. So we went to cook up something, and we went outside, and he said, well, why don't you because at that time I was at UPenn, why don't we figure out something we could do together between Sept and, And I said, wow, that would be terrific. And by the time we'd met for about an hour, we'd agreed that we would do collaborations in the summertime on housing workshops. And we did this for a few years. I would bring students from this time, it was UPenn. Maybe there were 8 or 9 or 10 of them. And sometimes I came with an assistant. And Doshi would then figure out, what project we'd pick. It's all kind of real-time, real stuff. And the learning curve was astonishing. First of all, Doshi's just a wonderful teacher. And you don't know this, but you can surmise it. No, he was just totally involved with all of this. And so we did this for a few years. And, the first year, the students stayed in the dorms. That was a disaster, because it was just too primitive, frankly. And they hated the food. So then the next year, he came up with a much better idea, which is there are a lot of empty apartments in Ahmedabad because people go some other place and they don't want to let it to anybody else because they may never recover it. So we had clusters of places that students could live in. And then we actually, he's very caring right down to the very detail. Well, they have to eat good food, for heaven's sakes, yes. So we hired a cook. And one of these places was the kitchen, and they met each other. And then neighbors started to get involved and they all got fat, by the way. Bringing in these delicious dishes. And, talk about a happy campus. This was just amazing. And the work improved enormously. But, Doshi made them literally go and talk to people and see things and watch things. And there were lots of issues that you'd think would just be normal, but like privacy, totally different, the way in which people deal with privacy in India. If you don't look, you don't see, right? So, and doors were open, in the neighborhood because, the kind of ghosts, the relatives might return to say hello, And anyway, they learned a lot. And before I went the first time, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. The second time I said, everybody who goes has to have been some other place in the world outside of this country, okay? And so they were definitely more sophisticated. And some of them never wanted to leave. In fact, several of them stayed on and worked at Sangath, and it was difficult to pry them away, which we finally did. But anyway, this is how I first got to know him, and we became really good friends and comrades in arms here, and laughed a lot, because he can be incredibly funny. And it was just very bonding. So after that, I'd invite him wherever I could to come and do things with me. When I became Dean of the School of Architecture and Planning, Architecture at UCSD, I had no faculty, I had no students, but I had a big plan. So the first exhibition I had was about housing environments, and I invited him to be the keynote speaker, which he was thrilled with. He was like a kid in a candy store. He was out there on the beach and the dunes, and he just had a totally fantastic experience. But he gave a really stunning speech, and it was really important that he was able to do that. And even the last time, which is only a year ago, by the way, by now I'm at MIT and I'm teaching a virtual course, which is an absolute pain, as you all know. You have to do this. And I had this idea that actually what I would do is get a number of architects in the world to talk about their housing, in maybe like a 20 minutes, half an hour. But the students had to have researched them beforehand, and then we had a really good conversation. And he was the first one. And oh my God, I probably had 100 people. Thereafter it was 12 or 15, but this one, everybody wanted to be there. And he was so excited because he loves teaching. He always did. And he'd been waiting again for another chance. And he and I knew each other so well. We had a really fantastic conversation. And some of the projects down below, are there because this was a course about housing design. And there he was, giggling and talking and poking fun, and so just unbelievable. And as we all know, he never even got a gray hair until recently in life. The idea that he's in his 90s is shocking, But always alive, always fun, always absolutely inspirational. I think Khushnu's done an incredible job. The big exhibition, actually, that's been traveling the world is quite remarkable, and the book that came out. I love what you've done here, by the way. This is very special. And the idea of these frames that actually, divided up. And I love to see the contemporary videos, honestly, because I taught in that building, of course. And the only thing about being in that building was you couldn't actually have a lecture you're given without having birds flying through or animals chasing each other. Anyway, you go like, okay, here and there. That's just the way it is. That was very Indian and kind of amusing. But no, I mean, he's always such a breath of fresh air and so optimistic and such a damn good architect. You could learn amazing things from him. And I love the way he spoke. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Adele, for sharing those special, unique, and valuable moments. That I think that brings the flavor of the projects, but also Doshi's life, and what an extraordinary human being that he is. So next, I'd like to invite Charu Kokade to share a few stories with us. Charu?
Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I must congratulate the BAC for having an exhibition like this in Boston, because it's so important even just to see architects' work done in such a different manner. So I should lower it. Thanks. Especially for students to see how the drawings, the sketches, the renderings, and then the block models coming into reality. I think that's something that's been missing for some time. And when you look at the work that students do these days, especially with the technology and the renderings and all, they're so engrossed in that. So it's very refreshing to see something like this. So, and it's very interesting because I was told this morning about this exhibition, actually, and I was very excited to see it because, and I went to Moshe, and I was talking with Moshe, and Moshe was telling me a story about when he met Doshi the first time. So in 1962, I believe, when Moshe was working in Louis Kahn's office on the project in Ahmedabad, the IIM building, the Institute of Management building. And Doshi was the local architect or the architect of record in Ahmedabad. So Doshi was visiting Philadelphia, and Moshe said, oh my God, he was like a hero because Doshi had worked with Corbusier. And Moshe was like, that was like a hero for us. And it was interesting because Moshe then got called to work in Montreal on the World Trade Fair, and he never got a chance to work on the project or go to Ahmedabad. But eventually they caught up and connected again and everything. So the association of our offices through Moshe and through our work is like for last 50, 60 years. And it brings back, and so that it really is important for our office or even for our company, basically for our firm, to support an exhibit like that because just so many similarities. And in a very funny way, it's sort of, I studied architecture in India. So this is like in 1990, we were working on housing projects as part of our curriculum. And Mr. Doshi came and gave a lecture in our school. And at that time, like how Moshe felt he was a hero to us because he had worked with Corbusier. And our connection to Corbusier was through Doshi, and we understood the buildings through Doshi. So we visited Ahmedabad to look at his projects and look at Corbusier's projects, of course. And Doshi personally gave us a tour through the street that we saw over there of the low-cost housing, as well as his projects, as well as we went to his office. And he started discussing it and by showing Habitat 67. It sort of comes in full circle for me because I am with Moshe Safdie creating more habitats based on Habitat 67. It's sort of this whole circle of life. And amazingly enough, at that time, one thing that was really striking for me as a student was to see someone who was so relatable, who was happy to come and talk to us, who was happy to explain to us. And everything that he discussed was about human beings, was about humanity, was about human skill, was about users. and use of local techniques, local skills, because that's the only way you could make buildings affordable. And that's something that has stayed with us and stayed with me particularly. And so when I joined Moshe's office many years ago, I don't remember now, that was the first thing we discussed in terms of where did you work, who did you study, that kind of thing. And it's amazing that today I'm standing over here working at Moshe's office talking about Doshi. It's something of an important thing for us and for our office to really support an event like this. And I think that the way both companies work, and both of them work, is very similar. I met Mr. Doshi a few years ago before COVID, and I was so amazed by his energy. I was so amazed by his enthusiasm to discuss architecture. And also his hope, especially particularly for housing in India and housing around Asia, because that was what we were discussing, his hope that things improve and his hope that people design for other people instead of designing for themselves. And I think that's something that we all need to learn and remind ourselves over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charu. I appreciate that. And particularly, I think the connection, the long-standing relationship between Doshi and Safdie and how you are connected to both of them. And we are fortunate to be connected to both of them, both personally but institutionally as well. I think that's a great serendipity and a great gift. Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite our trustee and principal at CBT, Kishore Varanasi.
Thanks, Mahesh. And Karen, good evening. It's the wine. Reception should be afterwards, if you ask Doshi. So the reason why I'm standing here, in addition to being the trustee of the college, et cetera, I had the great fortune of working at Sangath a long time ago at this point. Early in my career, for a brief period of time, it was, even though it was brief, it was quite transformative for me as an individual, the way I looked at life, as well as, of course, as a designer and a professional working at Doshi's office. And Mahesh asked me to share some stories from that perspective, as a young intern in a master's office, right? So the fun thing that I remember is, we used to skip breakfast because around 9 a.m. there would be good, healthy coffee that would be served in the studio. We waited for the time. So the guy would come and scream coffee, and everybody would go down and pick up coffee. But the afternoon tea was mandatory, that you had to step out of your studio. Everybody had to come into the garden and socialize and drink coffee or the tea together in the afternoon. So it's not just simply about the culture of design, but the culture of life and communication and engagement was very important to him in terms of the way he viewed his staff and the people he worked with. Yeah, absolutely about focus on human beings, whether it's the buildings that he's designing, an extraordinary human being. I mean, very humble. I expected going into meeting somebody who wouldn't talk to me, but that was quite the contrary. I do remember we had a whole culturally event in the evening one time. We brought all the staff in the garden outside. Everybody kind of did their own trick, essentially. I was terrible. I sang a song. Everybody laughed at me. But, here's a man, the greatest architect in the world. He sat on the ground across from me, having fun in the evening. So that was quite extraordinary. He was such a wonderful human being. As far as my professional experience is concerned, all the you probably saw the studio. It's an extraordinarily beautiful, not just the building as an experience. So there are 4 walls, and his main studio is the wall closest to the street, and there was a mezzanine at the back, and all the interns, sat there. So every time he would come into the studio, we would drop our pencils, and we would just lean on the, railing, and they would just listen, right? Nothing but listening and just take the words. I mean, everything he said used to be quite inspirational and wonderful, but always we were on the attic, right? But I ended up working with one of the senior designers on this big project we were working on at the time. These skylights that actually bring the building down. It's for diamond merchants. The whole thing is designed around the building sort of as a crystal. So these skylights that actually sort of bring the building down to grade and meet the floor, but bring the natural light into the parking garage. Just simple skylights, right? But it was the most important thing for him. So that's what we were working on. And this senior designer somehow had to go and get married for a month, and nobody other than me knew what was going on. So one day he came into the studio, okay, I want to work on this, and who knows? And they pointed to me. So he's like, okay, come on, work with me. So I was, I froze for a minute. I was intimidated, but, had enough interactions that, I felt comfortable. So we were working on the model, figuring out the skylights, and, talking about the design of the skylights. And he said, go to the model shop and pick something up for me. So like a good soldier, I dashed to the model shop and came back as fast as I could. So he said, I really don't need that thing, but I wanted you to observe and notice a number of things along the way, which is very instrumental to what we're discussing, the experience of light, nature, interaction between the inside and the outside, it's quite phenomenal what he explained to me. So he told me, don't cut to the chase and get to the end point directly ever. So, I've gone around the circles all my life and learned a lot in doing that. I may have ended up in the same place, maybe a little bit better, but the experience of discovering the intangible, I think that was mentioned, was very important for him. And then, he would always tell the story of his own office. You actually enter in the back of the office. So the main door is at the front, and you walk through the gardens, we experience the building, you go all the way back, and then you enter the building. So the story is that, my clients are always not very happy with me because cost overruns, schedule overruns. So they're, an Indian city is a, pressure cooker, right? So you would come in, with a lot of anxiety and anger, and then you walk through this garden, you experience the building and the landscape, and you've cooled down, and by the time he entered the threshold, they're a transformed person. So for him, that's the role of architecture. They're no longer angry and they forgot why they came. And of course, he's an extraordinary human being. So that's really what architecture is for him that I learned anyway. I wish I had the opportunity to work longer, but instead I went to work in post-disaster housing, learning everything that the master has to teach and at least spread that in India, and then I came here for graduate school, and it's quite influential and transformative. But overall, I think, like I said, for him, he produced some extraordinary pieces of architecture, but it is about the experience of the humans that are using it, that are experiencing it. That's very important, and I think Mahesh was asking me earlier, what's the relevance? That's the relevance to the BAC. BAC brings architecture to people and the students of all across all paths of life. So, and that's what he believed in, and I'm glad the exhibit is here for that reason. So thanks for asking me to speak, and thanks everybody for being here.
Great, thank you so much, Kishore. That's so delightful, but also that shows you what a great teacher he's been, and so I'm proud to be his Ekalavya Shishya. Great. So I think that's the program we had, but I wanted to actually open it up to anyone else because I'm always surprised by Doshi's life, 96 years and going 96 now. It's an epic life and career by any measure. It's just unimaginable. Imagine that when I was in architecture school, he was my age now. So that puts it in perspective for me. And so if anyone else has any other views you'd like to share, you are welcome. Okay. If not, of course, we will mingle again after this program, back to the exhibition space, and you're welcome to interact and share stories or share experiences of the exhibition. Come back, visit, because when I was spending time going around, I said, you can spend hours going through the projects, watching the videos and all of that, and taking that in. and coming to your understanding. So please do so and share with us, engage, and let us know. But thank you so much. Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Hello.
Please tell us your name first.
Hello, Alex Hoagland. Fortunately enough, I was actually able to study during a course about Balkrishna Doshi last semester. Now I'm nervous. No. So, yeah, last semester I studied, it was Neelkant Chaya? Yes. Who is actually a peer of Balkrishna Doshi. And I was able to study his work, and I actually didn't know who he was going into the semester. I had no clue. I quickly, wanting to research, dive in further on my own, I learned that he was a Pritzker laureate, and I was like, oh wow, that's actually really impressive. I was like, now, I want to dive in more. So I was actually doing a lot of research on my own, and I learned that he has this really good understanding of materiality, but also bringing it to a human aspect. So like everyone has said, it's about the experiences that his buildings bring. However, he also played a huge importance on understanding what the building is made of, such as concrete. It was the institute that he designed in Abu Dhabi, where he gave, I watched this on YouTube, I'll be honest. He gave a tour of it, and he was explaining that a student asked on the tour why they didn't paint any of the walls. And what he explained was he wanted the texture to speak for what the building is and let these different textures guide you throughout the building. And that to him, that was more important than being able to have these color indicators. And he had these different pillars that indicated points of entry. So it was really insightful learning that, he has this great understanding of how it feels to be in a space, and then replicate that into building material. And I just learned a lot from that course. I know it was very interesting. I also learned that he was just a very humble man, and he was just very passionate about his craft. And I took that to heart a little bit. So yeah, thank you.
Great, that was delightful. And the course that you're referring to is a seminar that was taught by Professor Neelkant Chaya. Professor Chaya was the dean of the CEPT School of Architecture, and at the time, I think it was just the one institute. So we are fortunate that he has taught a course with us in fall semester in prep for this particular exhibition coming up. So thank you for sharing that story. So I think that concludes our programming. Thank you again for assembling, and let's now mingle. Let's take the conversations into the hallways and drinks and hors d'oeuvres, so let's enjoy it. Thank you.